I think she's the host now. There we go. All right. Thanks, Terry. Okay, so we'll call the order at 1:31, and we'll kick off by stating that we're conducting our meeting today on the territories principally of the Deschamps and Hoopatchisitt First Nations, and that because we're having a hybrid meeting, that we'll also be coming to you live from various Nuu-chah-nulth, Coast Salish, and maybe even the Kwanghan-speaking people's territories as well. As stated, we're conducting our meeting in a hybrid format, which means that we have directors and staff here at the office in Port Alberni, as well as people online. In addition to that, if anybody wishes to interact with the board who aren't in the physical gallery, you're able to do so by email, by sending a message to responses@acrd.bc.ca. And for the rest of us, we do have various individuals here who I'll read out. So I have myself, in addition to our Vice Chair, Director Deb Haggard, Director McEwen, Mayor McEwen. We have Director Cote, who's also the President of the ADICC, Director and Councillor Cindy Solda, as well as Director Susan Roth. For staff, we have Daniel Cyan, Wendy Thompson, is Terry here? Yep, Terry and Alex. And I think that's it. We have a couple of folks in the gallery, and that's that. Okay, so you can access the video through one or two places, either through our website embedded on YouTube or by going to our YouTube channel directly. We do not monitor the chats, however, so you do have to use that responses at acrd.bc.ca email address to interact primarily that way. I do not believe we have any additions to the agenda. Oh, yes. Oh, man. Yes, I would like to add an agenda item just to speak to the Island Corridor Foundation, and I wouldn't mind maybe putting that into correspondence for information or just somewhere near the beginning. It's just a report on that, kind of relating to something that was stated up before. Maybe we can just stick it in behind or in front of item 7. Just as a quick, I don't know, chair's report or something like that. But I don't have any materials that it should be a verbal report. We're coming up on a deadline. I wouldn't mind checking in with the board on it. Any further comments? Okay, we're gonna have a motion to accept the amended agenda. Thank you, Director Roth, seconded by Director Blicko. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? The motion carried, thank you. All right, that brings us into declarations. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest, apparent conflicts of interest, or gets exceeding $250? On once. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 4. We have quite a few sets of minutes because it is budget season. That's always fun. First item is 4A, Board of Directors meeting minutes for February 22nd, 2023. Thank you, Director Roth. Do we have a seconder? Director McEwen, thank you. Any errors, omissions, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Second item is the Committee of the Whole meeting dated February 22nd, 2023. Moved by Director Cote, seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Item C, the Alberni Valley and Banfield Committee meeting dated February 23rd, 2023. Moved by Director Roth, seconded by Director Silva. Thank you. Errors, omissions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Item D, Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting dated February 23rd, 2023. Thank you, Director Roth, seconded by Director Silva. Thank you. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Item E, Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee meeting dated February 27th, 2023. Moved by Director Roth, seconded by Director Silva. Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Next up is item F, Parcel Tax Review Panel meeting, February 28th, 2023. Thank you, Director Haggard, seconded by Director Cote. Okay. Further comments? All those in favor? Motion carried. Item G, West Coast Committee meeting dated March 1st, 2023. Thank you, Director McEwen. Seconded by Dr. Siga. Thank you. Okay, any comments? None. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. And then finally, item H, Bamfield Water Advisory Committee meeting dated March 2nd, 2023. Thank you, Director Beckett. Seconded by Dr. Roth. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us, already to, we'll call it a verbal report from the chair. But before I do that, I'm just going to, yes, please. Okay, with that in mind, I just wanted to have a quick check-in in regards to the Island Corridor Foundation. The foundation is heading towards the conclusion of a campaign because the federal government needs to, that's so much better, thank you. That needs to look at whether and to what degree the federal government will be supporting the existence of the Island Corridor Foundation as a cohesive entity. The foundation itself has been moving through this process in a way that makes sense. However, it has been struggling with some of the First Nations issues and commentary on the very existence of the Island Corridor, going back to the Douglas Treaties and beyond. And it's just my understanding that we still support the idea of the Island Corridor Foundation and for rail on Vancouver Island for the benefits that it would present the entire region, especially when it comes to bulk and freight. That would be primarily the part in which our region directly benefits from. But I don't know if people have been reading the papers. I would note that Judith Sayers, president of NTC, a former member of the Island Corridor Foundation, has been on record as supporting it. Just knowing that there is some drama going on, and I just wanted to give a report on the fact that there will be some sort of resolution next week, I think at the end of the week. But other than that, I wanted to give the opportunity for anyone to comment, but that's pretty much where we're at. If not, we could just have a motion to receive. Thank you. Moved by Dr. Silva, seconded by Dr. Cote. Does anyone have any comments? Seeing none? I think it's just awkward, to say the least. I do think from an economic perspective, I think it does speak to the benefit of the region. I think we should have to be aware of that, understanding that there is nuances that are perhaps beyond our own influence, but we'll leave that as it is. That being said, I guess we can just move on. So all those in favor of receiving the report? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us into correspondence for information. Would anyone like to bring anything forward? Dr. Kotek, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the Tishat First Nation, I'm looking at page 77, and that's a response from our chair, and just say thank you for that. Going to Tishat, it's very disturbing to know what's happened in the past and it all coming to the truths. So I'm not sure if you attended.
No, I wasn't able to make it.
Thank you.
On behalf of the HFN, I had been assigned to meet with a couple of BC ministers, but the chief counselor, Kuwait, who actually went to the residential school, he was able to attend as a result of that. So I figured it was a fair trade. It seems as though we had a reasonably good interaction with Sishan after the fact, though. So hopefully that makes up for it. But that is definitely part of it as well. Any further comments? Dr. Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The next item D, Delta BC Government, the Growing Communities Fund, would now be a time to make a motion towards that? Or should we do that later in the meeting?
Please go ahead.
If you want to make a motion with regard to the budget, I would wait till later in the meeting, and we can make it as part of the budget discussions. If you have a question about it or a different resolution that's not about the budget, now would be a good time.
I will wait until we get to, I don't know, number 11 or 12, something like that, question period?
Yeah, we'll flag it. Dr. Roth is slated to keep me in the ankle if we don't talk about it either. So, yeah, no, I've asked her to make sure we don't forget. With that in mind, are there any other items to discuss? Vaguely related, and this is the only thing I'll bring out, is it seemed as though the Island Coastal Economic Trust wasn't mentioned at all in the BC budget, and I find that a bit perturbing. So hopefully there is some momentum going on in the background of the provincial governments to make sure that the Island Coastal Economic Trust can continue doing the work that it's done, given the benefit that it's brought to many of our communities just here, let alone the rest of Vancouver Island. I think it's important just to underline the fact that the Island Coastal Economic Trust is different and has operated different since inception across the province. And it's different in comparison to the other trusts that were set up. So we hope to see a resolution in some way, shape, or form. But I think that's just a concern that I have, but I'll keep watching that like a hawk as time goes by. If there are no other comments, we have a motion to receive. I don't remember if I did. Thank you, Dr. Roth, seconded by Dr. Cote. Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. That brings us to item 8, request for decisions and bylaws. 8A is the Salmon Beach maintenance contract. Jenny, could you speak to that, please? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so we brought this to the Salmon Beach Committee at our last meeting, and we had issued the request for proposal to get a new contractor to provide maintenance services for Salmon Beach. Unfortunately, we lost our past contractor in October, and so we have a temporary contractor who's been filling that need for us and doing a good job. The RFP, the Salmon Beach Committee recommended that if the proposals were within budget and were able to respond locally, that they would support going to the board to pass the resolution. We have closed the proposals and we received a couple submissions, and the highest scoring proponent was Goldstone Enterprises for a budget amount of $93,600 per year. And this is the same contractor who has been providing the interim service, and the service level has been excellent, and we're very satisfied with that. And it is also within the budget amount. So staff are recommending that we award this contract for 3 years with the option for 2 renewals. Happy to answer any questions.
2 separate renewals or 2 years of renewal? Sorry.
2 renewals of 3 years each. If mutually acceptable.
Thank you. I just forgot. Dr. Siga, do you want to take this? Oh, you have to unmute though.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to move that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors award the Salmon Beach maintenance contract to Goldstone Enterprises Incorporated in the amount of $93,600. Excluding GST, plus an annual increase of 2.5% per year over a 3-year term, with 2 additional 3-year renewal terms upon mutual agreement, and authorize the CAO to negotiate and execute the Salmon Beach maintenance contract on behalf of the regional district.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. McEwen. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Thank you. Next up is item B, the UVCM grant application for poverty reduction planning and action. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So the regional district had a request from the Alberni-Clayoquot Health Network Table of Partners to apply on their behalf for funding in the amount of $50,000 through the UVCM Poverty Reduction Planning and Action Program grant opportunity. And this would be for an equity-based decision-making and stigma reduction project. They would partner with Literacy Alberni. Proposed start date for the project is May 2023 if successful. Total project budget of $117,500 with Literacy Alberni participating. And the key project priorities include stigma reduction and social inclusion, increasing equity in local decision making, and increasing inclusion of voices of lived experiences in planning and decision making. If there's any questions, be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. Director Boyko, did you have your hand up? Oh, you're muted though.
I have a question, but I don't know if I want to ask it before the motion's made or afterwards.
Would you like to move the motion?
I'll move the motion that the Alberta Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors support the application for $50,000 in funding from the UBC Dam Poverty Reduction Planning and Action Program grant opportunity for the equity-based decision-making and stigma reduction project.
Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Director Roth. Okay, do you want comment or do you want vote first?
I just have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
So my questions is this a one-time thing that they're looking to do, or would this be an annual type funding? And secondly, whenever there's a project like this, it's very hard to say if there is some key performance indicators that it has been a successful thing, or if it needs to keep going for a long time. But it's very hard to put, say, yes, we have reduced stigma 10% or 20% or something like that. Thank you.
Dr. Cote?
Thank you. Through the chair. So thanks for the question. I'll try and answer it. There's been work ongoing regarding the poverty reduction for a couple of years now with the Health Network. Getting the lived experience voice was an important part of that. That's already has been initiated. So this is more work that's coming forward with a partnership with the Literacy Alberni. And I think that that's important. We've heard of issues that we are facing at the board over the last while. This new board has already heard of incidents with youth and I totally support this. So measuring improvements is very difficult to do, but seeing the involvement of people out there is concerning. Maybe just taking, for example, the people with lived experience participating. We're identifying areas that we can try to help. And hopefully this grant can start addressing some of that. Hope that answered. Thanks.
Dr. Boyko, did you want to follow up or clarification?
I guess I don't really have a good follow-up, but yes, it's very hard to put some kind of measurement into how much poverty there is now, how much we reduced it, did we reduce homelessness, that kind of thing. And it's very hard to put a number on that. I'll say I'll support this, but it would be like to see some measures of what kind of success it has rather than, we just had 10 meetings or something. Thank you.
I think that's more than fair. I see Wendy, and then I have a comment after this too.
Yes, I can pass that on to Marcy DeWitt, the coordinator, to include that. And part of the grant funding is she will, or someone from the Health Network will have to present the final findings to the board of directors. That's a requirement of UBCM grant. So.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to relay my understanding, and maybe Marcy can come back and correct me at the next meeting. But in regards to how we measure poverty reduction and action planning, my understanding of the equity-based decision-making portion was that it was talking about how we evaluate whether and to what degree a certain decision within the program or within any program designed for poverty reduction, how you would actually evaluate an outcome. So judging it not based on an aggregate number, but on an equity intersection, I suppose, so that the reduction in poverty is also best bang for the buck based on equity. So that sounds like it's something having to do with either gender or ethnic considerations there. So I think what it does is modifies how we think about poverty reduction and how we measure it, at least on the decision-making portion. Like how do we get to a point where we decide to do something here rather than here? Whether or not that's successful, I think, is something we should keep track on. The stigma reduction project is, I think, training people who will be employed by these programs to not say things or go through and do things in such a way that increases stigma, keeps people away from even wanting to apply to them, as well as maybe some behavior in regards to how these things are rolled out and how interactions with clients or whomever we want to call it would be reduced if they're in a vulnerable or visible minority population. I know a bit about this, so it helps, but how we measure the efficacy of that is something that maybe we should have a conversation with Marcy about, have her come in and give more presentation about that, because this is relating to how we measure success of these programs. And I think when you raise these things, Fred, you got to keep doing it because it's going to help us have good conversations about what success looks like or what progress looks like, and so on and so forth. So let's get Marcy in here. Okay. That being said, are there any other comments? Okay, saying none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item C, which is the financial plan draft first reading. So, Terry, yeah, you should move. I don't know you.
Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
Okay, so we have finalized a majority of the stuff related to the financial plan, and we're at the point of wanting to get first reading and get this bylaw on the table. The one component, which was a really nice curveball on Friday, was the province announced $1.8 million to the regional district for grant funding. They claim this money is going to be fairly unconditional. They haven't provided us the details yet. I will go through what I know, and then I'll go through what I don't know. I know that each community was based on $500,000 base plus an amount based on your change in statistics between 2016 and 2021 and a growth factor related to that. I know that municipalities also got funding. Things I don't know and I assume that the municipal populations are not a factor in our regional district amount, that it's probably based solely on the rural population, but I don't know that for certain. Then I also don't know exactly what we can spend it on. There's some obvious ones that they're pointing to: housing, water, recreation. So where we are at from a staff level is we were basically rolling out this agenda as this announcement came out, and kind of wanting to wait. So some things that I would kind of like to get some indication from the board on, and where I'll tell you what we were planning on doing is to look at this over the next week and kind of look at some options. Based on funding that we've received in the past that has been based on population, I think there's going to want to be an emphasis on the rural areas, I would assume. But not all projects will meet that criteria. We know that the areas that we are experiencing some tax requisition increases, and some kind of one-off projects that would be great to kind of fund this if possible. So we're hoping that we're going to get some more info in the next week, and we will be contacting ministry staff about even some what we knows. But yeah, we're hoping to make a plan. I know that from a staff perspective, we've talked about the infrastructure gaps in our 4 fire departments, yet not one press release mentions fire at all. So that would be probably a priority for us. We have fire hall for each of the 3 fire departments that we run ourselves, as well as Cherry Creek is also looking for a fire hall. So we've got those sitting there, which would be great options. However, not sure if that's eligible. So just asking the board still to provide this first reading today, and I will go over some other components, but thought we could discuss the Growing Communities Fund first. Still looking to get first reading so that we are not doing all of our readings potentially at one meeting, but then we can still make changes at second reading if and when we find out more information. I would also like to remind the board, and as an option, is that we haven't done strategic planning with this new board, and we are planning on doing that I think in the beginning of May. And so this might be some money that we consider spending a portion of it this year and using some of it next year for 2024 initiatives and taking more time to have a plan. But definitely needing to go back to the drawing board on this. And I think if we can just stop and talk about the funding first, I would probably, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion regarding that. And then I could summarize the rest of the plan after, if that works, Mr. Chair.
That would be good. So should we put the motion on the floor first or just have a discussion? Does that matter?
Let's have the discussion on the 1.8 million, because I think it's going to weigh heavy on everyone's heart in terms of having a voice on that. Once we have clarity there, I think it'll be easier to do first reading.
Okay, I just want to underline before we start that the reason that we're doing strategic planning after the budgeting period is because we have a by-election coming up and we want to include everyone at the table in that. So let's have that under consideration when it comes to rural areas accessing this money as well, because Cherry Creek still exists. That being said, we'll go to Director Boyko to kick it off. Please go ahead.
I don't know if I want to put forward the motion, but within a week after we have, do we got to wait until a Cherry Creek person is not only elected, but what's the next word?
I think sworn in.
Signed, sworn in, yes. But I'm okay doing the first reading, but I would definitely, rather than putting this money towards future projects and that kind of thing, I would like to move in the next meeting to just allocate this right to the bottom line, follow what the city of Surrey did on Monday, because I'm assuming that a lot of people are going to be doing this because of the huge tax increases they're seeing. There's 10% in Vancouver, everywhere else. So this is going to be a common theme through everywhere. And with the large increases that we're seeing in the ACRD, move forward and keep the taxpayers happy. Thank you.
We can just have that as like a notice of motion or something like that, because I think it would be good if we just put the first reading on the table and then we can make modifications afterwards. Dr. Roth?
I wanted to support Fred Boyko.
Okay, we can just make sure that we address that at the second reading as well, because we'll know more by then. Dr. Boyko, is that okay?
That will work. Thank you very much.
Okay, Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Question to staff through the chair. I'm not sure that just adding it to the bottom line can actually work because of how it would be designated paid out to different services. Some services won't be eligible, and there might be an equity problem with doing that. So I'm not willing to just say, here you go. We're not a municipality. They're very different government legislation. So I really don't think that that's going to be the right solution. Thanks.
Yeah, given the status of municipalities, they can just throw it at whatever they want because of the nature of their legal entity. But us, it's a confederation with a bunch of services that are pretty ironclad, I think. Like we would need to go through it either piece by piece or something. But what we can do is have a report on what we can and can't use it with, or how we might do it at the next meeting. So that's why I would propose that we have a decision at the second reading, with the understanding that this conversation will inform what they report on. I did see Carrie with her hand up, and I'll go there first before I go to Director Roth and then Director Silva.
I didn't actually have my hand up, but I actually do think it's going to be a struggle if it's infrastructure only, I actually think it's going to be a struggle to spend the full 1.8 million. I definitely can do the work and figure that out, but you have to remember the only part of infrastructure that's being taxed right now is our contributions to capital. So, and those would have to have related projects in those services to actually be able to use, and those projects would have to not have any component of grant funding used for them. So I can definitely go with the approach that you would like to use the majority of it to reduce the taxation in this year. And that's good direction for us to know as to whether you are wanting to save it for next year or try to get it. So if I go with the approach that you're wanting to use the majority of it this year, we can definitely build it that way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we can shake it out with, like, I would almost bet that Surrey and them are using it for housing and those sorts of things where we aren't doing any of that. So that's what makes it more challenging. And if you think in terms of water, our requisitions for water this year for an infrastructure basis collectively are probably 300,000. So recreation wise, I think we'd maybe be 50,000 for actual infrastructure components. So I do think that will be challenging unless we can open up to like staffing resources, project planning. If we can use those sorts of things, we have lots of those components in our plan for sure. So we can definitely look at that. But again, unfortunately, the province always recognizes the municipals' May 15th deadline. They don't necessarily pay attention to the regional district's March 31st deadline. So this is a challenging turnaround for all regional districts. The larger ones are able to focus like capital on their housing projects and water infrastructure. But it is going to be tricky to reduce our taxation by 1.8 million for sure.
Great, thank you for that. I think I had Dr. Roth and Dr. Cote, or no, sorry, Dr. Roth and Dr. Okay, Dr. Solda, if you want to go.
I got a one that you would kill me at. Pool. Anyways, I'm just pouring that at you. But that's not why I put up my hand. I really caution that you put it to the taxes, and the reason why is because you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. What happens in the 2024? You know, does that mean that we brought the taxes down in 23, but in 24 you have to add it all back on, and that's might even be a larger burden to the taxpayers. Just keep that in mind too, what happens. And I'm not a financial person, you would know that. So I just wanted to caution that.
Okay, Dr. Cote, then Dr. Roth, and then, no, you're good? Okay, Dr. Roth and Dr. Steer.
I just want to remind everyone the state of our economy right now and the state of a lot of people in this town that lost their jobs, the cost of living and going to buy groceries. And I think reducing the taxes would be a priority for me.
Thank you. Dr. Steer?
Thank you, Chair Jack. Yeah, and it just alluded to what Terry was speaking towards in terms of the usage of the funding through the regional district, and I'm fairly clear on the municipalities' abilities. And I was, and it's maybe one of those questions to Terry, where has there been conversations with regional districts at this point with the province on what the parameters around this funding resource at this point, other than those conversations around infrastructure, recognizing the limitations that regional districts have? I know in conversations with the province around other things such as the MRDT, where we were able to have a conversation with the province to look at the perspectives of the municipalities in this particular case, to look at what that funding may be allowed to be applied to. And I'm wondering if, I know it's March 31st, deadline, but I'm wondering if regional districts, specifically, I'm guessing CFOs, have had a conversation with the province around opening those parameters around what that funding could be used for.
There has been a little bit of emails going back and forth. Most people are trying to use the funding to close their infrastructure gaps. So really not changing taxation plans and are putting that money towards these future projects and keeping those reserves going. So that's probably been 4 or 5 that have chimed in as to what their plans or their proposed plans are. But of course, no boards have seen this yet because it was just released on Friday. So no board have really had the fulsome plan. I know that there's quite a few regional districts with very large tax increases as well. And everyone's trying to focus on those infrastructure gaps. And I think water is probably the main focus is you have the funding.
Thank you for that. Dr. Boyko, and then I'll have something to say.
Thank you, Chair. Just about having a one-time charge to save taxpayers now and have taxes go up in the next year. It's very similar to a corporation that has a one-time charge for, say, a large layoffs and has a large cost at one time. And everyone realizes that you have the savings now and it will go up later, but either way, you're saving money. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
So question to the chair, how long do we have a timeline yet on how long we can spend this?
We know no details besides the fact that it's 1.8 million. That is the only thing that I know, besides the few, like, there's a few things in the press release that kind of give us an education about it. And it just talks about to support recreation facilities, water, housing. But that's pretty much it. And then they finish it with a final line that says it'll have some flexibility for the communities to use how they see fit. But I don't know what that means in terms of grant conditions. So
I'll add to that, that it's the reporting back end that concerns staff, I think the most is, it's one thing to be verbally told, very few strings attached, limited reporting. But in the absence of any information, if we make a commitment, spend it in a certain way, and then find out that we have to report out on where it went and how that money performed, if we put it all in the wrong area, we're not actually doing ourselves any favor. And so we just want to make sure that we are reaching out. I know Terry's reached out. I know other communities have reached out. I know that the ministry is busily trying to answer different questions, but we would really love to see the conditions or the reporting requirements in writing so that we have something to lean on. So far, all we've had is verbal exchanges, which is great, but it's not necessarily the final position of the province.
Okay, thank you for that. I have quite a few things I wouldn't mind asking or mentioning. So before I do that, does anyone else have any other comments or questions? Dr. Haggard, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Jack. I will be supporting this just to go towards the bottom line to save taxation this year. It's a one-time gift that we're getting, so I want to see something really tangible done with it, like a new water system in Banfield or a new fire hall, or have it go towards parks and trails. I want to see something really tangible that we could say, this is what we did with that $1.8 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask a few questions. So Terry, you might want to be on the spot with this. Okay, so there's a few things that I wouldn't mind asking about. So first of which is, do we still have a capital reserve, and would it be worth putting money in there? If not, don't worry, even if it might not be eligible. And then the second question is, and it's relating to putting it on the bottom line, would we be able to invest in something like a rate stabilization, like tax rate stabilization fund to kind of reduce taxation across years? Would that be of benefit in some way, shape, or form rather than just doing it this year? So I think those would be my first two. I have a bunch of others.
So as a regional district, we have many capital reserve funds. Every service that we have that has infrastructure has a capital reserve fund. So we could put it into those at this point, but at some point they're going to make us show that we've spent it. So in terms of a rate stabilization reserve, we could just make it like the board doesn't have to decide to do anything with it at this point. We could adopt the budget as is, discuss it later in the year and make a budget amendment as long as the budget amendment didn't affect taxation. So we could assign projects to it later in the year that are capital in nature and proceed with them. I will also remind the board that we are getting pressure to spend the Canada Community Building Funds, and they would like those spent by March 31st, 2024. We have quite a few projects on the books for that. And so if this project or if this funding really is without a deadline, then staff may be recommending, I don't think we have capacity in our work plan to take on more projects. We can reassign the work to or reassign the money to projects and how we fund them. But to take on a new project will be challenging in this 2023 year. We could definitely propose something to be done next year. The majority of our projects that are on the books this year are actually grant funded. There's not a lot that's on there that doesn't have some sort of component of grant funding. There could be stacking limitations where we're not allowed to stack this grant onto other grants. Again, that's something we'll have to wait to find out. So yeah, and then your other question about a rate stabilization kind of reserve, we could just kind of keep it in general government and reallocate it as time goes on, potentially. But again, without the conditions, it's really hard to know.
Yeah, like 1 year T-bills, like US T-bills, they're going to give you 5%, right? So there's stuff like that we could do. Not that I want to best in the US coming from Canada, but that kind of example. I do see that Director Beckett is there. There's a couple things I wouldn't mind just mentioning. So Dr. Haggard's already mentioned us, the parks and trails and signage. I think that is an option. Another thing that I was considering is we do have incentive programs for our residents and citizens to trade in their stoves, or in a more local instance, and Bob might be able to elucidate me. Are there incentives that we could create to get or provide incentives for Bamfield to hook into the sewer system that's been built and that sort of thing? These are the kind of things that I might want to look into from a perspective of how can we benefit our citizens more than just what their tax bills would be, because helping with incentives towards hooking into sewer, trading in their old stoves, those kind of things might be of benefit in some way, shape, or form, not just to those individuals, but to some overall quality, like air quality, or the fact that we wouldn't be putting sewage in the inlet in Bamfield and so on and so forth. I am still interested in the idea of working together on creating a blue zone for doctors and either attracting or keeping doctors. This could be something that we could invest in heavily, using some of this money for that purpose, because wait times are still there. There was one more. Oh, are there programs or that sort of thing that we could undertake to help prevent future costs from occurring, especially when it comes to our assets, our older assets? Are there things we could do now at a lesser cost that would cost at a certain point at the half-life of a piece of infrastructure? Are there those things that we could invest in that could save us money in a longer term format? Something like water systems, but newer kind of things, either preventative or early maintenance that could help extend the life of something. Even the landfill, that would be my last one. So I'll leave it at that. I have too many ideas, and that's too difficult. Plus, Director Beckett has his hand up and he's been very patient. So please go ahead, Dr. Beckett.
Thank you very much. Great discussion. Certainly diverse opinions as to where and how we could use this money. We could go on and on and on and what if this to death, but I think that having staff come back with clarification based on what the province provides will allow us to have meaningful discussions in order to make some decisions. And I can't help but think that perhaps this could be a cow discussion, so that we have ample time to explore all of the options and put things on the table. And I just want to say I'm so grateful to the chair and Director Haggard for mentioning Bamfield. I'd love to clean up the sewage in the inlet, and thank you for your generosity. Director Cote did talk about equity amongst the region, and that's the challenge we'll have to face moving forward. But phenomenal discussions at this board table today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that in mind, are there any other comments in regards to the money that's coming in? I think we need to know more about whether or not there's restrictions, because honestly, with a blank page syndrome, we're going to be talking for quite a while. But if we know that there's boundaries, people are often more creative within boundaries. So this is not me asking the province for boundaries, but maybe we should think about how we want to scope this ourselves too. Dr. Roth, go ahead.
Yeah, if we're talking infrastructure, and Beaver Creek has 40% of the pipe in the ground that needs to be replaced. So, I mean, all infrastructure for all areas.
Yeah, like exactly. Like, is there preventative measures that we can take now that would be less, even costing the difference moving 20 years in the future, or whatever the half-life of those pipes are, right? Well, yeah, but there may be things we can do for most bang for the buck, right? Dr. Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. So through the chair again, I think that we do have a strategic plan meeting coming forward in the very near future. And I think there needs to be a fulsome conversation around all of the grants that we have and how we can use it. So, and I think we need to sort of raise the lines as to which pot of money we're taking it from, but put it all in one united pot, and then from that, because we have a deadline for the Canada funds and gas tax, that we have to use up within a certain time. If we had that with this money, and we could look at the projects that were eligible, and then with an equitable eye, divide that up and get these projects all done from what we have. I think that that's the fairest way to go about this. And it's not that far away. Thanks.
I think that might give us an equal share, because then Cherry Creek could be involved in that. We can always just put in an account that'll make us some percentage, right? And then we'll have slightly more to talk about. Dr. Steer, please go ahead.
Thank you. It was just to follow up on, Director Cote pretty much spoke to what I was thinking. The opportunity to have this discussion, where a strategic planning, having just gone through one, also helps to provide a conversation for where those prioritization areas. It acts as a bit of a guide for us to help negotiate and have that conversation in a more productive way. And I support also the fact, as Director Beckett was speaking towards, once again, to be able to have a fulsome discussion and an opportunity through a committee of the whole meeting, once again, provides that. But a strategic planning session and a strategic planning conversation also helps us to set direction and priorities, and be very much useful in that larger context of where, and what a wonderful problem to have to be dealing with. But it will help us in that direction for those conversations.
Thank you for that. Okay, so with that, I did have the idea of to what degree could there be help for transit? I know that we didn't get a grant in regards to the, I can't remember what it's called, but the West Coast Transit, but also there was something else that was just in a report not too long ago. The special transit. Yes. Yeah. So there are those considerations too. I wouldn't mind having a conversation at a committee of the whole. So I think that's a great idea, Director Beckett. I think that's something that we should do. And I would challenge everyone to think about what's the best bang for the buck. Like, how much benefit can we create for our constituents, but also for the entire region on a bang for the buck basis, in terms of looking forward, life of assets, as Dr. Roth has pointed out, or certain services or projects that could save us money in the future as well. Because there are other things that we can do with this money that may fall within the boundaries that the province creates. So, and then failing that, we can always just sit on it until after a strategic planning session that includes all members. So Cherry Creek would be involved too. So now we just make some percentage by putting in an account. If that's the case, I don't know that we need a motion. Like,
no, I mean, you could move to, well, that's actually wasn't formally on. We're just talking about the budget. So I think for us, we know what we're tasked to do on the 1.8 million, and we kind of touched on it on the report anyway. So let's just dive into the budget.
Okay. With that, any final comments on this fund that's come in before we move on to the basic budget? The main budget? Okay, seeing none. Okay, Terry, do you want to?
For sure. So the overall financial plan, so our total budgeted expenditures for the year are 29.7 million overall. A lot of that, or some of that, is grant funding. And we have gone through this from service to service and looked at all of the options. This morning, we had the committee of the whole meeting, and at that meeting, there were 3 changes that were made. The West Coast Inland Search and Rescue Grant and Aid was approved at $6,000, with all municipalities and electoral areas in Topot contributing. And the Port Alberni Marine Rescue Society was also awarded $6,000, and that was from the city of Port Alberni, Bamfield, Beaufort, Sprout Lake, Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek, and Topot. And we also moved $50,000 of the provincial climate action funds from regional planning and actually dedicated them towards this building and the investigation of what we're going to do with that moving forward. So putting a climate lens on that project. So moved that funding from regional planning to general government. So when it comes time to do the motion, there is an amendment that I have drafted. I did email it to everyone and I can put it up on the screen. But I was thinking maybe we could just have general discussion first, or and let me know when you want the amendment up on the screen.
Okay, let's have a general discussion first and then throw the motion up on the screen. But I would ask the folks online just to check their email. Okay, any further comments generally? Given the discussion that we had for grants and aid, I'm glad that that resulted the way that it did. I think we also committed to going through a process in the post-strategic planning period to have a discussion about how we may formalize a program to automatically deal with what is classically grants and aid, because it does take quite a bit of time of staff and our own time to make decisions on things that we may be able to set up automatic policies to deal with. Because having that information automatic coming to beneficiaries would be helpful, or whatever we want to call them. That was my only comment. Does anybody else have any comments on the first reading so far? Okay, so maybe we just move to the next portion of talking about it.
Okay, so
Can
basically,
you zoom in first?
yes, I can. So this is a summary of everything that was made this morning. So it doesn't specifically say what they were, but it is to all of those things. So I'm wondering, Director Jack, if when they go to move the amendment, if because it's on the screen, you might be happy with them not reading it, or otherwise, I'm sorry for whoever chooses to read the motion.
I think since it's exactly what we spoke to, we might be able to just refer to this motion as we move the motion as presented, because people can pause the video to read it out if they would like. Because I think everyone here has, well, with the exception of the folks in the gallery. I'm comfortable with that if folks are, because are each of these one motion or are they all separate? How is it? Could it be interpreted either way?
One, I would, as long as Wendy's fine with it, I
Yeah,
would
it
say
looks like
one.
we can move it as a block. So let's just verify that it's this, what we talked about already. I mean, it is. If you're online, the camera view is quite small now that we're sharing the screen, so you may just need to unmute and say if there's anything you'd like to say. Okay, if there are no comments on what's presented, do we have anyone willing to move it as a motion? Dr. Cote?
Would it be the motion that's?
No, it's not there. It's the one that's up here. Yeah. Go ahead.
So we've requested is if give first reading to bylaw F1160 2023 to 2027 financial plan, but don't vote on it, and then we'll move into these the amending motion with all
Yeah. So
listed on the screen.
you do the first reading and then we'll amend.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
So I'll move that the Alberni Claycott Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to bylaw cited as bylaw F1160 2023 to 2027 Alberni Claycott Regional District Financial Plan.
Thank you, Dr. Solda. Okay. So now that we do that, now this is an amending motion to the original motion. So that's what's on the screen now. And I'm just going to read it out for everybody because it seems like that would be easy. All right, so this is an amending motion that the Board of Directors amend bylaw F1160, General Government, page 8 as follows. General Ledger Category 103, conditional grant increased by $50,000 to $91,768. GL Category 127, tax requisition decreased by $50,000 to $2,209,576. And that the Board of Directors amend bylaw F1160, grants and aid. Alberni Valley and Banfield, page 11 as follows. GL Category 127, tax requisition increased by $6,000 to $58,000. And GL Category 240, grants and aid increased by $6,000 to $58,000. And that the Board of Directors amend bylaw F1160, grants and aid Alberni region-wide, page 16, as follows. GL category 127, tax requisition increased by $6,000 to 44,100. GL category 240, grants and aid increased by $6,000 to 44,100. And that the Board of Directors amend bylaw F1160, regional planning, page 19, as follows. GL category 103, conditional grant, decreased by $50,000 to 371,080. GL category 260, project expenses, decreased by $50,000 to 405,080. Is there anything else after that? Nope. And that's the motion. Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by Director Haggard. Hopefully I said that out right, but it's written, so. Okay, that being said, any further comments? So these are changes to the grants and aid just for the record and video, as well as a couple of other things just to reflect it because of how general ledgers work. Okay, seeing no comments, can we stop sharing? Okay, I'm trying. So it might be a pop-up, so just go into the middle top. Alex, help her. Oh,
Janice, are you able to kill my screen share? I can't because I'm remoting in, so it's like to.
so you're remoting to your desktop?
I'm remoting to my desktop, and the stop share is behind my toolbar at the top, so I can't
so the
click on it.
toolbar-
So I don't know if someone else can kill my screen share.
We may need to dispatch someone from staff who are located next to
You know what?
Terry's
I
office.
just want to try to exit the meeting because I don't need to be in anymore if I can.
If you stop the whole meeting, it's gonna be
No,
hilarious.
stop me being in.
Okay. Okay.
There.
Oh, okay. All right, welcome back, everyone. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. That wasn't so bad. Okay. Yes. Now that we have the fully amended motion in front of us that has already been moved and seconded, anybody have any comments on the now amended motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Your motion carried. Thank you. All righty. That brings us to planning matters. So first up is electoral area directors voting only. Item 9.1A is a Banfield item. Is it Alex? Please go ahead, Alex.
Thank you, Chair Jack. So the first application we have for you is a rezoning application for a property located at 275 Banfield Boardwalk in the West Banfield area. The rezoning would allow for the applicants to proceed with their intended development of a house and up to 3 rental cottages on the upland portion of the property. The remainder of the property is developed for commercial lodge and restaurant uses. Public hearing for this file was held on February 23rd. Public hearing report and minutes are presented for the board's consideration, and staff recommend that the board receive the report and minutes and proceed with second and third readings of bylaw P1453. Thank you.
Director Beckett, would you like to go?
Thank you, Chair Jack. I'd like to make the motion that the board of directors receive the public hearing report.
You have a seconder. Thank you, Director Cote. Comments? All those in favor? All opposed? Your motion carried. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion that the board of directors receive the public hearing minutes.
Seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
And that bylaw P1453 Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be read a second time.
Seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
And make the motion that it be read a third time.
Seconded by Director Roth. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, I've been reminded that I accidentally missed the motion, so I'm wondering. Yeah, go ahead.
I can speak to that. So I had put a motion on there that we set a board of directors meeting for the 29th. However, we don't necessarily need to decide that today. We can meet on the 22nd and then have this discussion about the grant funding. Hopefully we'll know more about it at that time, and then decide at that point if the board is comfortable adopting, or if not, then making that 29th meeting permanent. I would just say, please, if we decide not to make that motion today, just make sure your calendars remain open for that afternoon, because we may still need it, but we don't necessarily need to make that decision today.
Yes, so please block the time. Maybe we can get someone to send out a placeholder calendar invite just for everybody's benefit. Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to item 9.1B, Beaufort OCP. Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. The Beaufort OCP Amendment Bylaw P1448 includes policy amendments to the existing Beaufort Official Community Plan that intend to align with the draft updated zoning bylaw. This amendment is part of the overall zoning bylaw review project that includes amendments to all 6 of the electoral area OCPs. A public hearing for this file was held on February 9th, and the bylaw was given second and third readings on February 22nd. In staff's opinion, all requirements for adoption have now been met, and staff recommend that the board adopt bylaw P1448. Happy to answer any questions.
Director Boyko, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion that bylaw P1448, Beaufort Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw, be adopted.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Roth. Any comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll just say I really enjoyed reading the OCPs this year, so good work. Okay, with that, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, item C is the Beaver Creek OCP. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Jack. The Beaver Creek OCP Amendment Bylaw P1444. This also relates to the updates to the 6 OCPs in the region as part of the zoning bylaw review project. The amendment bylaw, which intends to again align policies with the draft updated zoning bylaw, was considered at a public hearing held on February 28th. There were 9 members of the public in attendance, and no public correspondence was received ahead of the hearing. Public hearing report and minutes are presented in the agenda for the board's consideration. The comments received at the public hearing are highlighted in the report. A number of those questions and comments related to the regulations provided for in the draft updated zoning bylaw, which was not considered as part of this public hearing. So during the hearing, staff clarified that the updated zoning bylaw will be presented for the board's consideration independently from the OCP amendment bylaws, and that any changes to the updated zoning bylaw can still be considered. Staff continue to engage with the public and the board members on refining that draft zoning bylaw with the most recent October 2022 draft available on the ACRD zoning bylaw review webpage. If anybody is interested. So at this point, staff recommend that the board receive the public hearing report in minutes, and considering the input received at that was specific to the OCP amendment, staff recommend that the board proceed with second and third readings of bylaw P1444. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Dr. Roth? Oh, microphone.
I'll move that the Board of Directors receive the public hearing report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
Move that the Board of Directors receive the public hearing minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried.
Move that the bylaw P1444 Beaver Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw be read a second time.
Thank you. Seconded by, thank you, Dr. Cote. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you.
That bylaw P1444 Beaver Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw be read a third time.
Thank you. Seconded by Dr. Cote. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, well, that's that. That brings us into item D, Beaver Creek. Alex?
Yes, thank you. The final item we have for you is a development variance application for a property located at 4375 Compton Road in the Beaver Creek area. The variance would allow for the construction of 2 accessory buildings within the required side yard setback. The board considered this application at their February 22nd meeting and initiated the public notification process. No correspondence was received following that public notification, and staff recommend that the board issue development variance DVE 22008 at this time. Thank you.
Director Ross?
Yeah, I move that the Board of Directors issue development variance permit DVE 22008.
Thank you. And seconded by, thank you, Dr. Cote. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, well, that brings us into reports and unfinished business, which I don't believe there is any. No late business as far as I know. Okay, question period. Do we have anything in responses?
No, Mr. Chair, we have no participants and no emails were submitted.
Okay, so next up, we have a recess to go into the regional hospital district meeting. Then we'll reconvene to go in camera, and that's when the broadcast will end. So do we have a motion to recess the meeting? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Mike, please go ahead. But you need to use a podium and use the microphone. Make sure to hit the button so that you're on camera.
That's all. As far as OPC goes, you've had a few already, and some people haven't been able to make theirs in the areas of representing. And Cherry Creek's coming up, is that correct? So can they come to Cherry Creeks and voice their concerns there, or is it only for the electoral area?
I'd be happy to respond. So we do have a public hearing planned for the Cherry Creek OCP amendment. Each public hearing is specific to each of those OCP amendment bylaws. But if there is a member of a community that wants to attend another public hearing that relates to an OCP outside of their area, they're more than welcome to do so and provide us input. And I will highlight again that the zoning bylaw remains in draft form, and if any residents out there, Cherry Creek or otherwise, have any comments that they'd like to make or any suggestion changes to the zoning bylaw, I encourage them to contact planning staff.
Okay. The other question I have, though, one of the things is the amount of livestock on the properties. Is that a government regulation above us, or is that our own in-house numbers?
So we have a keeping of animals regulation in the current zoning bylaw, and we've proposed to revise that, or the ACRD's proposed to revise that in the updated draft zoning bylaw. That would intend to set limits on the number of animals based on lot size. There are situations where land is in the agricultural land reserve, for example, and in those cases, the provincial regulations will apply. Our regulations that are proposed in the zoning bylaw would not apply to lots that are 5 acres larger and would not apply to any land within the LR.
Oh, before you go, could you use the mic? And I forgot to ask you to identify yourself.
Well, I'm Mike Sparrow. So I am right now. Oh yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, did you want to say anything? Okay. Make sure to use the microphone.
Hi there, my name is Kenji Kage. I'm a new member of Beaver Creek since last spring, and I'm just here to see what's what and what's going on. So no official business except for that I might want to get involved. My background is in real estate valuation, and I'm interested in what's happening around the neighborhood and particularly the water at Beaver Creek.
Good to know. We'll keep you in mind for maybe committees as well. Thanks. Okay, any further comments or questions? I guess nothing would have come in the email, eh? Nope. Okay. With that then, if we could have a motion to recess the meeting. Thank you, Dr. Silva, seconded by Dr. Cote. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. We are now recessed. We'll be going into the hospital district, which isn't in camera, guys. Left for no reason. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to say Happy International Women's Day to all the women on staff and on the board, and also to all the women standing beside the men on the board and staff. So I'd like to call the meeting of the Hospital District Board of Directors to order and recognize we're conducting the meeting on the unceded territories of the Shuswap and Kutcheshet First Nations And also recognize that we have directors calling in from other areas, and we acknowledge those First Nations with our respect and gratitude. And notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. So we have an agenda in front of us. Is there any additions from board members? Seeing none, could I get a motion for the agenda as presented?
Second.
Motion by Director Roth and second by Director Jack. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We have minutes from the Board of Directors meeting February 8th, 2023. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I get a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Director Jack, second by Director Solda. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Correspondence for information. There's information from Island Health 2022 review of Community Health Network. News release regarding the Community Wellness Grant Program calls for application 2023-2024 capital projects and equipment. Is there any discussion or anything that somebody wants to pull out? Dr. Cote.
It's just exciting that the Island Health is very supportive of the health network and coming forward with more funding. So that's wonderful news.
Could I get a motion to accept the correspondence we received? Moved by Director Cote, second by Director McEwen. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So request for decision, annual budget for years 2023 to 2027. Terry, thank you.
Thank you. So we had discussed this in December when we did a provisional budget, but basically so what has changed since that time is we do have that letter from Island Health with our 2023-2024 capital projects and equipment that was seen earlier in the agenda. So this year they're proposing, they kind of do it in two categories. They have like minor equipment and then they have major projects. So for minor equipment, they're asking for the $550,000 that we usually provide annually. They have about $670,000 of previous year fundings that we've approved. I still have sitting in our bank account that they would like to allocate towards these projects as well for a total of $1.2 million worth of minor capital projects this year. I did kind of question why they had so much of this money remaining and did outline in the report kind of what their reasoning was. And some of it was because of, was it the CT scanner? Something didn't proceed. Sorry, I'm forgetting now. But the unspent of the endoscopy project was canceled. And then there was some savings on some other projects. So that is budgeted at the 550. And then in terms of major capital projects, they actually have a fairly substantial request this year of $700,000. So that is for the thermal gradient heater at the West Coast General Hospital. So our cost share of that project. Also last year, there was a bit of miscommunication when we had a new person writing the letters and we had originally missed some of their requests, or I had missed some of their requests. So we did a budget amendment and requisitioned $468,000 of their major equipment requests last year. And so we still have committed $468,000 this year. So 68,000, sorry. So I have included all of these projects that they have indicated as part of this budget. The result of all of that with the debt that has retired is that the contribution to the Tofino General Hospital Reserve will be approximately $190,000 this year to keep the tax requisition flat at $1.836 million. So I have outlined in the report that if directors are looking for cost saving measures, the hospital district taxpayers are the same taxpayers as the regional district. So we could reduce the tax requisition by up to $189,000 to offset the increases that we're seeing in the regional district. However, staff don't support that as it really is a asset management infrastructure gap that we don't have money to replace this hospital at this time. So staff are proposing that we do all 4 readings and just adopt this budget today. If the board is comfortable making that decision, great. If not, then we would propose that you call a special hospital board of directors meeting on the 22nd to go immediately after the regional district meeting. And then we could finish adoption at that time, because it is also a requirement to adopt by March 31st. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Terry. Director Cote?
Thank you. Through the chair, possibly to Terry, maybe you know, on page 13, second to last line is general support services. West Coast General Hospital is West Haven Servery Improvement. So that would not be the hospital facility. Are they funding outside agencies now, or just wondering?
I think that in terms of Island Health, the West Haven facility is actually kind of considered part of West Coast General Hospital. I believe I can ask for clarification from them, but I do believe that we have assigned projects to that facility in the past as part of the building. I don't exactly know what servery improvement is, because if it's part of the building or what exactly the equipment is, but I can ask further info.
Go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. I'd like more information on that, clarity, if the building of West Haven was actually part of the hospital build, or how that's severed, because that does strike me as something that we should be looking at. Thank you.
Any more questions for Terry? So because Director Cote wants more information, will we be putting this on hold until the next meeting then?
I would recommend that this is actually a very small portion of the request. So I'm comfortable if the directors are to adopt the budget, and then I can just advise Island Health that we want more information regarding that one line item before we advise them if we'll release that funding.
Is everyone in agreement with that? Perfect. Hey, would anybody like to make the motions? Sorry.
I was just going to read them out if that's fine. Yeah.
Go ahead, Director
So
Jeff.
I'll move that the Alberta and Clayoquot Regional Hospital District of Directors, Board of Directors, give first reading to the bylaw cited as Alberta and Clayoquot Regional Hospital District 2023 to 2027 annual budget number 135.
Seconded by Director McEwen. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Go ahead, please.
I'll move second reading.
Seconded by Director McEwen. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
And I'll move third reading.
Seconded by Director McEwen. Any final questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
And adoption moved.
Seconded by Director McEwen. Last chance for questions. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is reports. Banfield Health Center, Director Beckett.
Thank you very much. Last week, unfortunately, there was a fairly significant flood in the facility, thanks to a couple of community members who came down and immediately started to mitigate the effect of the flood throughout a good portion of the building until the remediation people could arrive from wherever they were coming from. Everything is back in operation, and they're beginning to repair drywall, rugs, et cetera, starting this Sunday. Some good news that VHA has now approved full-time administration staff, a single position being shared by 2 individuals, which is such an asset for the nursing staff up there. And unfortunately, we are down 1 nursing staff member. So we're operating with 3 nurses rather than 4 nurses over their rotation period. And that's all I have to report. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Alberni Clayoquot Continuing Care Society, Director Siga.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. West Coast Native Healthcare Society, Director Cote.
No report.
Thank you. Tofino General Hospital, Director Steer.
Yeah, nothing significant from our last report.
Thank you. Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, Director Cote.
Thank you. So no report. The minutes are all in your agenda. So look forward to the next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is West Coast General Hospital. I had 2 pages of reports. I was going to try and condense and tell everybody what's happening with their ER today, but I thought, no, I'm just going to get the good stuff. The new ER is supposed to be going live today. We'll actually be seeing patients in the new space. So that's really exciting. There's still lots of odds and ends that has to be completed, but they'll just be working on and in the background. So that's great. And I thought when we have our next meeting, I would ask if we could get a tour scheduled for any interested board members that might want to go see it. So when I get that date sorted out, I'll send it out and let everyone know. But I think that's very exciting to get that big project completed. They've worked really hard on it. Any other reports? Oh, Director, sorry, CL, you're going to talk about the doctor recruitment strategy.
Yeah, and I just thought, given that it has come up on a number of discussions around budget as well. So we have been meeting with a group of primary care providers just to set the stage for discussion around how it is that we can best complement mainly the provincial actions that are taking place for supporting our primary care providers. And out of that, I did want to flag that we are part of that group includes the Primary Care Network, which works through the Division of Family Practice, and they did receive some support, and they are looking to open up an Indigenous community health center in the Port Alberni area to service this sub-regional area. It's a good step forward because it will include mental health support and will include some low barrier, culturally appropriate same-day service. It will take a while to get in place, and they are looking at various locations as an option. But just so we can flag what it means is once they're up and running, they're looking at the equivalent of 27 FTEs, so new full-time positions coming to this valley as medical and mental health professionals, which will make an important difference here in the Alberni Valley. So wanted to flag that things are happening and we are working with an active group. And so just wanted to make sure that the board is aware of those motions.
Thank you. That's very exciting. Could I get a motion that the Regional Hospital Board of Directors receive reports A through G?
Second.
Moved by Director Solda, seconded by Director Jack. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No unfinished business, no late business. Any questions, Wendy?
No, Madam Chair, no questions.
Could I get a motion to adjourn? Motion by Director Cote, seconded by Director Solda. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
Welcome back. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the broadcast portion of our program today. I'm wondering if I could read out a motion to go in camera, which I will then move, but it's important for transparency's sake that this gets read out beforehand. So I'll move to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter under sections 91J. Information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act and 221(1)(ci) of FOIPA, which would harm significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the negotiating position of a third party. Item 3 is 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. And so moved. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Haggard. Hey, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion